Hello, everyone. Welcome to Verlita's Everything in Between podcast. I am the creator and your host, Verlita Odom. I hope everyone has been well since we were together last. On today's podcast episode, I am discussing hospice. Hospice is one of those areas that doesn't get talked about a lot until the service is needed. And it's definitely not an area or a subject that people want to discuss because it's clearly means that someone you love is in the final stages of their life. So it's just one of those really touchy areas. But if you have the right doctor, the right social worker, the right hospice consultant, the process can be made a lot easier with the right person explaining the service. So if you've been following my podcast at all, you know that I have spent a period of time working as a hospice medical social worker. So I definitely wanted to take some time today to share a little bit of my knowledge with you guys, hopefully answer your questions. And if not, as usual, and as always, you guys can always email me any questions or comments at only1vlo2@gmail.com. That's only1vlo2@gmail.com. If you're listening to me on Anchor, you can leave a voicemail message for me. Even if you're not listening on Anchor, let's say you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, there's always going to be a link that will link you back to Anchor, where you can leave a voicemail message if you like or if you have additional questions. Okay, so I hope that you find this episode informative, and I'll see you guys after the break. What is hospice? Hospice is really a service that is provided by a team of medical professionals. It could include, should include a doctor, your nurses, social worker, chaplain, bereavement coordinator, CNAs, which are certified nurse aides. Um, that is your team. Also, hospice has volunteers as well, but that team is going to provide you with a level of care, and they're going to provide that care wherever the patient resides. So, whether that's in their private residence, whether that's in a nursing home setting, assisted living, whatever setting that patient or person resides in is where hospice care can be administered. You might want to know who qualifies for hospice and how is it paid for. Well, basically, a hospice doctor is certifying that the patient, the individual, has a terminal diagnosis that if it runs its what they consider natural course, that person is likely to die within 6 months. Okay, even if it's not, a one diagnosis, like terminal cancer, the patient may have several medical conditions that together has impacted their body, weakened their body to a point that because of the progressive nature of the combination, the comorbidities, this person is likely to pass within 6 months. Okay, so if you have a loved one with a terminal diagnosis or someone who has several medical conditions, several medical issues, comorbidities that, progressive, life threatening, and a physician is willing to certify that if those conditions run their natural course, you would likely pass within 6 months. So that is what would qualify you for hospice services. Who pays for it? You might ask. Your Medicare, if you're on Medicare, your Medicare should pay for it. Your private insurance should pay for hospice services. Um, Even Medicaid could pay for hospice services. And definitely don't want to fail to mention that there or many hospices that will take care of a terminal patient regardless of payer source. So even if there is not a payer source, you should still give the hospice a call. Whichever hospice you're considering, you should still give them a call or have the doctor give them a call, because many hospices will actually take care of a patient even if they don't have a payer source. Okay, so that is hospice in a nutshell. Who qualifies for it and who would pay for it. After the commercial break, I'm going to tell you about how working as a hospice social worker changed my outlook on the service. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First, it's free. Second, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. That's pretty awesome. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other forums. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. So for those of you who don't know a lot about hospice or have not had any experience with hospice or may be fearful about hospice, I have to be transparent with you guys and let you know that um, I had a lot of misinformation about hospice. And mind you, I am a licensed social worker, but I have to just be really honest with you guys and tell you that I had a lot of misinformation. I was very apprehensive about the service. I felt, in large part, it wasn't needed. And I also felt like they came in and used all these high powered drugs, and that was a bad thing. After working with hospice, um, I completely changed my perspective on things. There is a huge benefit to electing to go with hospice if you qualify for it. Really, too many to name, but just a couple off the top of my head for patients who are in a tremendous amount of pain and it's just not being controlled through the traditional means, meaning going to your primary care physician. They're just not able to help manage your pain. Hospice is a huge resource for that. Um, because their medical director is able to prescribe medications that other doctors who are not hospice or palliative care doctors, they're not comfortable prescribing. But, there are patients who are in a tremendous amount of pain due to their terminal illness, whether it be bone cancer or some other illness. And so hospice really is able to help tremendously with pain management for those individuals and to help keep them comfortable in their final days, the final months, however long it is that they have. Also, another benefit, if you don't have a huge support system, I won't even say huge support system, if you don't have much of a support system at all, hospice is a great support. And many times the workers really become like family because you are seeing a nurse on a regular basis, usually at least twice a week. You are seeing a social worker, usually twice a month or as needed. You are seeing a chaplain as needed. And if the hospice is fortunate enough to have enough volunteers, you will have a volunteer assigned to you if that's what you want. If you're a veteran, they will try to make sure you have a volunteer who is also a veteran, and if that's what you want, or at least someone that you have something in common with. You also have the support of certified nurse assistants. There's just a lot of people who are able to come in and provide you with support, not just in your activities of daily living, but just emotionally. So hospice is a great support when it comes to that area. You might hear this being said, they really are an extra set of eyes, ears, and hands. So if you have a loved one at home and families providing care, here you have this whole group of people coming in to help you with that care, not just for the patient, but also is supportive of the family. It truly is a interdisciplinary team effort to try to help the entire family, the immediate support system of that patient, not just the patient. So also another plus for those who qualify for hospice is, by electing to go with hospice, many patients have multiple doctors and specialists that they've been seeing for years, whether it be a cardiologist, pulmonologist, urologist, neurologist, the list can go on. And they're in and out, back and forth, and all of the, these doctor's appointments. And it really is tiring to them. And it also obviously can be very tiring. To the family members, the caregivers. Well, once you elect to go with hospice, your care is centralized to that hospice medical director. He is now overseeing your entire care, your entire treatment plan. So whatever issue you have medically, you can go to your nurse and therefore the doctor, and to get some help with that. You don't have to go any longer to all of those doctor's appointments. So that is a huge benefit. Um, so you have pain management, you have the interdisciplinary team effort that supports you all around, including emotionally. Now you have your treatment is centralized, is consolidated into just those the hospice doctor and the team members, and those are huge pluses, if you will, for an individual who is suffering terminally. So there really truly is a need for hospice, and I think that individuals who qualify for it are definitely better served by electing to go with hospice. Okay, so before I go, I'm going to discuss two commonly held beliefs that are just not um, accurate. One, a lot of people feel like if they go with hospice, it is in some way reflective of them losing hope. And that's really not the case. I feel like it really is just a change in what you are wanting. Instead of focusing on prolonging your life, these patients are more focused on the quality of the life they have remaining. And so their focus changes. Um, the hope just looks different, really, than what you would typically think about. Okay. So it's basically looking at it in terms of, instead of a patient, hoping for a cure to their terminal illness, now their hope is just to not be, full of pain all the time. And now they hope to be surrounded by their family members in their final moments. They now hope to be able to come to a peace of mind about the situation. Okay. So just because a person elects to go with hospice doesn't mean that they are without hope and they've lost hope. It really is them kind of redefining for themselves um, what hope is and what they're hoping for at this point in time. Okay. So, yes, hope does still exist. It just may look different when a person elects hospice. They just want to be kept comfortable. They don't want to be, hurting all the time and intense. excruciating pain, and they're focused on their family and making things right if there are some things that are not. So hope kind of looks a little bit different. And then also the idea that a person who elects hospice is definitely going to die in 6 months. That's not the case because I have had patients who have been admitted to hospice, started to do so well that they had to be discharged from hospice. A person can be admitted to hospice and actually be on hospice for years. Again, no one knows your final date. Basically, a doctor is just saying that because of your comorbidities or because of the terminal illness running its natural course, you are expected to pass within 6 months, but nobody knows that for sure. So, yes, I do know patients who have been on hospice for years. I also know patients who ended up having to be discharged from hospice because they no longer met criteria to be on hospice or they weren't hospice appropriate any longer. Hospice does not necessarily mean that the person is definitely going to pass. You just don't know. It just means that um, they definitely have some conditions going on in their body where they could pass within 6 months. Um, and so they are hospice appropriate at that time. Well, that is it for today's episode. I hope that you guys found the information on hospice helpful. If you have any questions based on today's episode, please feel free to leave me a question via email or voicemail or even on my social media. I will definitely try to get back to you guys as soon as I can. I love to hear from you guys. It just helps me know that I am reaching you and that I am helping you. And if you have any questions, if you want me to go into a little bit more detail about anything, if you have episode suggestions, I'm open to it all. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to catch the episodes that I publish. If you like the podcast and you are finding the information helpful, please let me know. Also, consider becoming a supporter of Verlita's Everything in Between podcast. There is a link on Anchor that says support or donate. Even if you listen on a different forum, it will still link you back to where you can make a donation. Anchor is now offering a subscription. So you are able to subscribe. We'll get notifications when I publish new episodes. All of your donations, all your contributions helps me continue to publish more episodes in the future. Again, I hope that you guys are enjoying the podcast and that you're learning a lot. So until next time, you guys, be well.